Laurent Duvillier, he's the regional communication specialist for UNICEF in West and Central Africa.
It's a vicious tactic because it's using children to really get closer to the community and to hit at its heart. Who would imagine that a 4-year-old girl would carry a bomb? Nobody would be suspicious. And that's why this tactic is very vicious, but unfortunately very effective. There are different profiles of child bombers. There are those who were abductors before. There are those who were separated from their parents when they fled the violence. And there are also children from remote communities and families that have some kinds of alliance with Boko Haram. So there are different profiles of suicide bombers.
Why are we seeing an increase?
Well, we are seeing it because it's probably one of the best way to increase the number of the casualties for the armed group. It's the best tactic that they would have identified at this stage to get closer to the community and to hit them where it hurts more.
So what is the lure for these young girls? Some, of course, are abducted. But if you're not abducted, what is the point of joining a terror organization like Boko Haram?
Well, we should remember that those children are victims, not the perpetrators. Some of them are at very young age, so they're too young to make an informed decision. So it's important to remember that some of them are not even aware of what they do and the explosives that they carry. That's something to keep in mind. And what we should always see are those implications for those girls and the women. Unfortunately, the more you have bombing attacks, the more you have an atmosphere of fear and suspicion in the communities. What we see today is that the perception of what the child is has changed. More and more, the children are being perceived as a potential threat for the safety of the communities and the families. And that is damaging also for the former abductees, because when they are being liberated, when they are being freed, when they return home, they're facing stigma and discrimination. We have the story of Asieh, who is 17. She was abducted, she was enslaved sexually, raped systematically and repeatedly, then liberated, and now she's back in a displacement camp where actually she's being discriminated and rejected by the other displaced people.
You know, it's been almost 2 years since those Chibok schoolgirls were abducted in Nigeria. What is the latest on them? And do you believe some of these girls who were abducted and are still in captivity are also being used as suicide bombers or you know, as weapons?
There is a risk. We know that the children, once they are separated from their parents, either as abductees or displaced children, are more vulnerable to all forms of abuse and exploitation. And the recruitment into armed groups is one of them.
And what about the international response, in your opinion?
Well, it has not been as high as one would expect after the solidarity movement around the schoolgirls of Chibok. One would think that the resources would be made available by the international community to humanitarian organizations. It's far from the reality we see on the ground. Our teams are handling very limited resources and are coping with immense needs and facing immense needs and urgent needs.